It's been a lot of fun for us over here at the National Telegraph, watching Prime Minister Justin Trudeau seemingly have to climb down and backpedal from every position he's held for the last few months. It's quite funny seeing that he's now wanting to engage in private talks with the Indian government after, for 2 weeks, publicly accusing the Indian government of potentially being involved in the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a person that the government was saying is just a Sikh activist, which was later discovered he's a radical Khalistani extremist who was potentially involved in training and coordinating terrorist attacks in India. Crazy stuff. And now Justin Trudeau is claiming that he never called the parental rights movement in Canada hateful. Remember, it was just like 3 or 4 months ago that Prime Minister Trudeau was saying that Blaine Higgs's PC government in New Brunswick was acting in far-right fashion, were being hateful towards LGBTQ people because they made modifications to Policy 713, which dictates the way that gender and sexuality is dealt with in New Brunswick schools, which made it so that if a child is going to identify as a different gender, their parent has to be informed. That parents have to have more knowledge about what's going on in the classroom. Sensible policies. Schools should not be places where when kids get dropped off, shutters drop around the school and parents aren't allowed to know what's happening on the property. That was how everything always was. That parents got to know what happens in the classroom, what the curriculum is, how teachers are speaking to their children, and what their children are doing at school. That was standard until like 10 minutes ago when a bunch of liberal activists started declaring war on the concept of parental rights because somehow parents being involved in raising their kids is dangerous and far right. Justin Trudeau was 100% complicit in trying to push this anti-parental rights narrative, and he was doing it all up to basically yesterday when in a press conference he was asked after the Muslim Association of Canada came out and called him out for basically projecting hate towards Muslim parents standing up and trying to protect their children from left-wing curriculum in schools, that he suddenly says, I was never calling anyone hateful who wants to stand up for parental rights. Obvious nonsense, but I just want to quickly cut to that press conference because it is baffling how blatant this lie is.
The Muslim Association of Canada and other groups have recently condemned your characterization of people, including Muslim families, who recently protested for what they call parental rights. You used the word hate to describe their concerns, and you've been asked to retract that comment and apologize. Will you do that, and should you have been more careful in the way you discuss this issue?
I will always stand up for everyone's rights in this country. Stand up for Muslim communities, stand up for 2S LGBTQI+ communities, stand up for marginalized people across this country, and protect them from intolerance and, yes, from hatred when it is there. I am going to continue to work to bring people together and to make sure our kids are protected while standing up for everyone's rights. This is something that is core to Canada, that we defend each other's rights, that we support each other. And I've never suggested that someone who's concerned about parental rights is somehow filled with hate or intolerance. But what we need to make sure is that when we do see expressions of hatred or intolerance against Muslims, against the 2S LGBTQI+ community, against any Canadians, that we are firm in standing against intolerance, and that we reach out to bring people together. That's what I will always do. That's what this government has always done with Muslims.
And now he's trailing off, so I'll cut him off there. But wow, what an answer. He immediately bronzes it out to like, well, no, I wasn't calling anyone hateful. I just stand against any hate instances that might happen nebulously out there in the countryside. This is a very good thing to see him climb down on. Because I think as soon as I know Muslim activists in the Muslim community who pushed on the MAC and other Muslim groups to make a statement against Trudeau because they tend to be more liberal-leaning and didn't want to do so. When they were pressured into calling out Trudeau for going after Muslim parents, that's when Justin Trudeau knew that his Muslim voter base, which the Liberals, like, they don't win the majority of Muslims, but they win like 40%. That's a big portion of voters to win from a community in a system where it's like, plurality government. Justin Trudeau can win a majority with like 40% of the vote. So winning 40% of the Muslim vote is extremely important for him. And he knows that, and that's why he's backing down. But I just want to kind of reverse a little bit here. I might even just play the clip at the very start again, just so you get to hear the way that the journalist spoke. One, notice how trembling her voice is. Maybe she's just nervous. I think it's because this journalist doesn't want to have to ask this question because it's uncomfortable for the Liberals' agenda. But also notice that the wording she used when she mentions parental rights.
The Muslim Association of Canada and other groups have recently condemned your characterization of people, including Muslim families, who recently protested for what they call parental rights. You use the word
Sir, for what they call parental rights. What do you mean by that? Like, this is where I don't like the supposed neutrality of the media. It's not neutral. If the parental rights, it is not just what they call parental rights to say, I should be able to know what my kid is doing in the classroom. I should know what's being taught in the classroom. And I don't want left-wing social activist values being taught in the classroom. That is 100% in line with any definition of parental rights you could find, but it's always so-called parental rights. And the media's been doing a terrible job reporting on this climb down by Justin Trudeau because, again, in their neutrality, they just act as liberal stenographers and they say, well, Justin Trudeau was asked if he will apologize to the Muslim community after he was called out for having projected intolerance and hatred towards them for standing up for parental rights. They just say that Justin Trudeau denied that he was ever hateful, and that he said that he had never called them hateful. They never then fact check him and say, well, here's the 7 or 8 instances where he did call them hateful over the past, few months. They're never going to do that because their neutrality involves only ever bringing up inconvenient facts when it's a conservative making a claim, but never a liberal. They just act as stenographers for the liberals. Here was a great post that Pierre Poilievre called out the other day that I remember there were so many people saying, oh, Poilievre's being contentious by calling Trudeau out on this. He's going to end up alienating a lot of moderates because he called out this statement by Trudeau. But Poilievre was being smart because he knew that Justin Trudeau was saying, let me make one thing very clear. Transphobia, homophobia, biphobia have no place in this country. We strongly condemn this hate and its manifestations, and we stand united in support of the acronym Canadians across the country. You are valid and you are valued. It's like, obviously, that was aimed at the people at the 1 million person march for parental rights because that was tweeted out like 12 hours after it. It was obviously aimed at the people protesting for parental rights. Even back then, I would say that Trudeau never specifically called out the rallies because he already knew it was getting very contentious for him to keep hammering on the parental rights movement when, by any polling, 80% of Canadians believe that there should be more oversight from parents in the classroom, that when your kids dropped off the school doesn't own your kids. You're just simply teaching the kids, and you should only be teaching the kids reading, writing, arithmetic, and some basic history. I think our social studies curriculums in a lot of our schools are completely inadequate. There's a reason why we can have a Nazi show up to Parliament and nobody for some reason knows what fighting the Russians in World War II and Ukraine means. They should realize that like 99% chance that person's a Nazi if they were fighting the Russians in World War II. Anyways, but that was very good that Poilievre called that out. And again, you had so many media, like liberal hacks, coming out to basically say, well, is Pierre Poilievre in favor of hatred? Is he in favor of intolerance? No. Poilievre knows what the meaning of the words Justin Trudeau is using are, and he knows who he's aiming it at. And he was very smart to come out in favor of the parental rights movement because this is one of Justin Trudeau's biggest openings or biggest gaps in his political coalition. The fact that he runs a very, very supremacist progressive party, yet he courts a lot of ethnic voters who naturally have more socially conservative values as they come from more religious backgrounds. That Poilievre should be exposing the fact that Justin Trudeau is completely out of line with a big chunk of his own base. And again, I think what should be done here right now is that the Conservative Party of Canada needs to now more aggressively embrace the parental rights movement. Yes, every once in a while at a parental rights rally, you'll have someone who says something uncouth. 1 in 1,000 people will always say something stupid that doesn't represent the whole. Just as we don't go after union members for using aggressive language, we don't condemn Christians for saying like something bad or whatever, just because we know not all Christians believe that, not all Muslims believe that, not all Sikhs believe that. That's why whenever I talk about Khalistanis in the Sikh community, I always make it very clear they're a tiny fringe minority of that community that the majority community does not like. Anyways, I think that, and again, one other thing I just want to quickly touch on here is the ridiculous claim that was made after the Manitoban election when Canoe won. They made it out that, well, this shows that Stephenson, Premier Stephenson, embracing the parental rights movement, that was toxic, and that's why she lost the Manitoba election. Like, no, she lost the Manitoba election because the Manitoba PC party was lukewarm on every single issue until a month before the election. That's when they embraced the parental rights movement. That's when they started being more fiscally conservative again. That's why they didn't get completely wiped out, is because they embraced the parental rights movement. Premier Blaine Higgs used to be the most unliked premier in the country. He was at like 23% approval. He's now at 33%. And I guarantee in another 6 months, he'll be over 40%. He's doing very well because he is actually speaking to the issues that voters care about. And the issues voters care about are not just the economy. I always hate whenever I bump into old red Tories and they're like, well, stop talking about social issues. Those are contentious. You're going to alienate people in the middle. People in the middle actually do care about their kids. The parental rights movement is actually extremely good for conservatives because most people, turns out, care about their kids just as much as they care about their finances. They likely care even more about their kids than they do their finances. So if you only talk about finances like Aaron O'Toole and undermine your social bases in the party, you're going to lose because those people are not going to show up and vote if you signal that you don't care about their kids. This is why Poilievre is very, very likely going to be the prime minister after the next election, because he's not throwing people under the bus in this scared attempt that if he only talks about the carbon tax, that's his best chance of winning. It didn't work for Scheer. It didn't work for O'Toole. And I'm happy to see that Poilievre isn't making the same mistake. Anyways, this is closing. I'm getting towards the end of this video, but I just want to remind everyone that I will be in Toronto alongside my co-owner, Daniel Boardman. We will be going and protesting at Chrystia Freeland's constituency office in Toronto at 4 p.m. on October 14th against the stupid censorship plans that the Liberals have to try and undermine podcasts like the one that we have here on YouTube, trying to be able to regulate what you can say and do, either through regulating YouTube, Spotify, and Apple directly, or regulating any other podcasting network that's private that's worth more than $10 million. It's authoritarian, socialistic type policy trying to take ownership over every little bit of the economy through small regulations at a time. It's gross. So if you're in Toronto, we hope to see you there. Also, I have a legal and travel fund. I'm being sued by a Chinese billionaire. It's cost me $15,000. If you can donate to my Gifts and Go link in the description, that would be very helpful. And that money can also, of course, because money's fungible, that money can also go towards helping me get to Toronto and pay for some of my costs in traveling. Again, TNT is effectively a big passion project for me and Daniel right now because of liberal regulations. It's impossible to have a very profitable news network unless you have like an angel investor just pour $5 million onto you. We got into the game in 2020 when it was already really hard to grow social media pages and to distribute your content. It's gotten even harder since then. And I'm very thankful for our viewers and listeners who like our content and have been giving money. It really sustains us and keeps us in the game. But if you want to keep helping us out, donate down there. And also I have the TNT email list also in the description of this video. And then also just let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about any specific issue. I always scroll through all the comments. I don't respond to everyone because I usually have like 100 comments or so. And I don't know, like I don't have that time of day to respond to everyone. But if you have any ideas for new content, things you want me to speak on, I will absolutely listen to it. And also just throw in ideas for a podcast that me and Daniel could do. So when we do a live show, suggest different topics that you are interested in hearing about, and we'll definitely try and touch on those if enough people seem to care about it, or even if only one person should suggest it. If it's an interesting idea, we'll totally go for it. TNT, even though we don't have a subscription service, we try and act as if anyone who frequently watches us is a VIP subscriber that we take ideas from. Other than that, I hope everyone has a brilliant day.